Hello, everyone. Welcome to this first edition of the 2020 Oracle Groundbreakers APAC Virtual Tour. And we want to say thank you for all the user groups participating of this big event all around Asia Pacific. We have Oracle user groups and also Java user groups. I want to say thank you also for our sponsors, Oracle Groundbreakers and CloudDB. And as for the first session today, we have Oracle 19c Best New Features and a few 20c tips by Rich Niemiec from Viscosity North America. In this tour this year, we will be 11 days of content with 123 speakers and 180 sessions, also including many workshops. So I recommend you to take a look in the agenda, the calendar, add some more topics as you wish, and enjoy these 2 weeks of knowledge exchanging and a lot of fun. Also, after each session, the recording of the session will be available for 2 weeks after the session itself. So if you miss a session, please just go back to the replays and you'll be able to watch the session once again or by the first time if you miss it. A little bit of housekeeping. During this session, you can make questions on the chat and notes posts of the Hey Summit session page. And the speaker, in this case, Rich Niemiec, will be answered then on his convenience during the next couple of weeks. Please feel free to enter any questions as a post in the session page. Saying this, thank you so much. And I will leave you now with Rich Niemiec and his amazing session.
Hello, this is Rich Niemiec, and this is a talk about what's important now. We're going to discuss 19C, we're going to discuss 20C a little bit, and we're going to look at 12 and 18 that might be important for 19C. If you want a copy of the notes, you can send an email to hello@viscosityna.com. Also check my @Rich Niemiec Twitter. And if you're a beginner, being an Oracle DBA is easy. It's like riding a bike. Almost. Special thanks to a few people. But why upgrade to 19C? And the answer is it's going to be supported long. It's going to be a long-term supported version of the database, and I'm going to go through this a little bit later. A little bit about me. If you'd like, these slides are available for download. But I work at a company called Viscosity. You want help from a partner, you can put 4 aces in your pocket with the help of Viscosity. These are some of the areas we work in: database, infrastructure, anything on the app side, things like Apex, all kinds of different companies. But the agenda is look at 12, what should I be using for 19? At 18, what should I be using for 19? Then 19, what are the key features that are there? And then let's look ahead. What about 20C? What are the things I need to start preparing for now? The biggest thing to know, though, is know the Oracle. If you look back in 1995, Oracle already had the first 64-bit database, but it took all the way into the 2000s for people to start leveraging that. And that's because in the 2000s, Oracle bought a hardware company and started accelerating the hardware world as well. Now Oracle is putting out a version of the database every year. Some are preview versions, some are innovation versions, and some are long-term releases. 19C is a long-term release, and that's why you want to be on it. How big is Oracle? Look how big their events are. AT&T Park is what they have to run out for their appreciation event. What's the top database? Well, since 1979, when Oracle came out, it was #1, and it has stayed #1 since. And you can see many of the other databases over the years. But the elephant in the room is, what about the cloud? What about Autonomous Database? Is the Autonomous Database going to leave me unemployed? And my answer is easy. My answer is, if you know Oracle, you know most of this picture. You just have to pick up some of the other little pieces here that are like picking up a feature of Oracle. But become, instead of a database administrator, a data administrator. But the converged database is key to go into different workloads, whether it's JSON, XML, spatial, graphical, in-memory, blockchain, multi-tenant. Oracle handles all of these data types, and they've been doing it for decades. And now the converged database, where all this is in one place, along with Exadata, if I'm using the cloud, is a huge advantage for Oracle. Some of the cloud choices that are out there, you can see here. Oracle is just, they start a little bit late, but they are really growing fast now. 140% Q4 growth rate. How hard is it? Go to cloud.oracle.com/try it. And you can go in, build an autonomous data warehouse, autonomous transaction processing. You might try analytics. You might try Kubernetes, big data, IoT, you name it. You get 30 days free. The new version, life is good. That is when it comes up. And then if you're using autonomous transaction processing, this is what it looks like. If you're not familiar, you could see provisioning, and then it's available, and that's version 18C you can see there in the database. And then autonomous data warehouse, very similar, and this one's 19C. But you could also do bare metal and pick any version you want, including preview version of 20C. And that's there. But the new version, the advanced DBA is interested. I'll give it a little bit of time. Intermediate DBA is invested. I'll put a few eggs into the game. The beginner DBA sometimes listens to people who say, oh, load it right away, upgrade right away. And it's your bacon on the line, which is another way of saying, hey, you're the one that's going to have a problem if it doesn't work. Are you using the 12C R1 feature? So before you go to 19, am I using those? Do I understand those? Invisible indexes on the same column is what Oracle's going to use to do automatic indexing. Approximate Query is going to be a way that Oracle is going to make analytics and machine learning fast. Pluggable databases are a way that Oracle is going to make it easy to move things around and go to IoT or big data. Partitions are a way that Oracle makes it very fast to access data because I'm only accessing a portion of it, but it allows me to move things while they're online. Offset X rows, fetch first rows. We'll see this in a minute, so I'll wait for that. And you can see a few other advantages as well. So multiple indexes on the same column. You could see department number has a unique index, and it's invisible. Reverse key, invisible. Normal, invisible. And a bitmap that is visible. So four indexes on the exact same column, only one can be visible. This is how Oracle is going to build autonomous indexing as well. Approximate Query. The results other than what I'm approximated are returned 100%, so keep that in mind. But if I'm looking for those departments with $1 million in sales, it's going to give me the correct department within 97% of 1 million with 95% accuracy. So it's not going to give me somebody with only $100 in sales. And you can also approximate and select count distinct from emp with an approximate as well, or I can toggle it on for all counts of distinct as of R2. And you can see when I have the logo in the upper right column, that's 12C, that's 12.1. When I have a 12C R2 logo, you'll see a different one for 18 and 19 and 20. Approximate, you're going to see some more advances. We'll see that when I get to 18C. Also in 12, offset X rows, fetch first X rows only. Why would I want to do that? Take me to the middle of the table and let's see if this query is still fast. So most people say where row number is less than 10 and you get the first 9 rows. How about offset 10,000 rows, then find 9 rows? And this is a great way to do that. That's just a tuning tip. And speaking of tuning, Oracle's really autonomous tuning that Oracle starts to do in the database all starts with adaptive query optimization in 12C and 12.2. And the main part of that is adaptive plans. And what Oracle does is they look at statistics, and then the optimizer says, oh, let's do a nested loop. We're going to take the result of one table and loop through the other table. Loops 1 time, 2 times, 10 times, 100 times. Says, whoa, wait a minute. Statistics told me it should only loop through 3 times. Obviously, these statistics aren't good. Change it to a hash join. That's going to be more efficient. So it literally changes a query while it's running. Pluggable databases are new. The best part, though, about pluggable databases is Oracle is going to give you 3 pluggable databases, user-created pluggable databases in 19C. And the reason they give it to you in 19C is because they're going to de-support non-container databases or non-pluggable databases in 20C. So you could see primarily, you could see some of the features here for pluggable databases. You have a container database. That's like when you install your database and you start doing applications, that may be one pluggable database, ERP. Then you might have a separate pluggable database for CRM, etc. If you don't use pluggable databases now, you probably have a non-container database currently. But when you get to 20, that can't be there anymore. Why do I want to do that? Well, because one database maybe is 90% idle sometimes, and another database is 40% idle sometimes. And so I want to share those resources so the aggregate throughput goes up. And you could see how using pluggable databases allows me to put many more transactions through. And this is with a whole lot less memory, which is pretty amazing. If I want to see which pluggable databases I have, just go to $PDBs. I also could do a PDB refresh. So I can have something maybe on site and then create pluggable database to refresh mode every 60 minutes. You can see the command there down at the bottom. And what it will do is time changes and changes are made. Those changes will be moved to that pluggable database. I could build snap clones, which are hardware based, which are a little bit smaller and faster. I also can do a PDB relocate using the same feature, but where I can take something maybe from on-premise, move it to the cloud, and then point the users there. These are just very nice 12CR2 features. Notice the logo in the right-hand corner is 12CR2. You can also do a flashback pluggable database, similar to what you've done in the past where you do a flashback to a given SCN, but I do it now for a given pluggable database. Another nice feature that came out with 12.102 and enhanced with 12.2 is in-memory. And you can see the in-memory at the bottom of when the database is started tells you that you are using in-memory. Something big, in my opinion, is that the in-memory base level feature, where I can get up to 16 gig at no extra cost, is now going to be available in 20C preview, but also it's being backported to 19, I believe it's 19.8. I have it in a later slide. Google's data center, what is it? All flash, everything's happening in memory. So basically, when I have transactions, I'm going to the buffer cache, looking at rows. I do analytics, I might be looking at a given column. So what's Oracle going to do? They're going to store that column in a compressed mode so it's extremely fast without all the other data, so that analytics can now be fast in a different in-memory column store. You can put it at the table, tablespace, partition, subpartition levels. All I have to do is add in memory to the end of my create table, or alter a table to be in memory. Now I do need to populate that table as well. Running the query, you can actually see the explain plan there to see that I am using in memory. Another nice 12.2 feature is all the online things where I can move a partition, move a subpartition. Update indexes where the indexes remain usable even during the move operation. Need 24/7, this is the way to get it. Also in 12.2 is Big Data SQL. You want to go to Hadoop from a secure portal place through Oracle to Hadoop, through Oracle to a NoSQL database. That's how you get security in these other data stores. Oracle also in big data, now external tables can be partitioned. So now they can be much faster by breaking them up into pieces. And you can see some new additions in 18 and 19 as well. So am I using R2 features of 12c? And there's a few others here as well. Next thing I want to look at is, am I using the 18c features? The first thing that came out is yearly.quarterly.update revision format for the actual version of the database. So year.update.revision. One of the great features I like is Snapshot Carousel, though, where I could take a clone, a refreshable clone, and I'm building one, PDB Test Master. We saw how to do that. But Oracle's going to do that for me, and then take automatic snapshots, one on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and next Monday, 8 days. Then I could take any of those at any time and use them, maybe for development, or maybe take some app clones from there. Or it allows me to very easily, not just maybe for portions of backup, but maybe for moving for a data warehouse, maybe for development. I want to see what the names of those files are. Here's a nice query that you have. And this, I just pulled out. I'm going to show you how to look at this later, but notice that licensing, this is on Exadata and Database Cloud Enterprise Edition. Not available on on-premise Enterprise Edition at the current time. You can also do a PDB switchover. This is another nice new feature, came out in 18c. You can see the command there at the bottom. So now I did this refresh where I'm refreshing maybe from on-prem to the cloud and from the cloud to on-prem. And I decide, let's have all the arrows go the same. Okay, so let's alter Pluggable Database, refresh for the gray link, and do a switch over to go the same direction as the red is going. Very nice command. And you can see the licensing again in the same area as I previously had. In memory for external tables, I mentioned this when I was on 12. All I have to do is add that one word, in memory, at the end. Approximate query expanded to do all kinds of count distincts. Look at the median, approximate percentile, and you can see what is Oracle doing? Preparing you for heavy-duty analytics and machine learning. And you can see the different approximate query processing, what versions it's in, and then there's also a top N query processing. Find the top 5 blogs. Now, what makes it fast with approximate? Well, the short answer is I was getting 1.1 gig of temp that I was using of memory. And now, what am I doing? I'm down to, one gig of temp here, and now no temp. I'm also using 1 gig of sort, and now just 50 meg, 1.1 gig actually. So what does it also do is using less resources. That's the key. You want to try some of these new things out? Try it out in 18C XE, which came out free version of the database. I loaded this up. It was extremely fast. You could try multi-tenant, you could try advanced index compression, you could try advanced analytics, flashback table, all kinds of things, spatial. So are you using the 18C features? Before I get to 19, am I using 12? Am I using 18? Am I leveraging what's out there? Now in 18, they also came out with autonomous database, where I can take where it builds a pluggable database on Exadata in the cloud, and I can play with machine learning, which is very, very nice. And you can see some of the other things like in memory for external tables and so on. If you want to try out 19C, you just have to go to livesql.oracle.com. You can see the current version that's out there. Tried this recently. And you can try out some different commands. You can also go to the docs. Here's an example of going to the database 19C docs. I'm going to do getting started. I'm going to look at database features apps. And I'm going to search for database in memory just to see what they have in different versions. And I can click on one of those and get more information for that. I also sometimes see, oh, it's not green, it's yellow in certain versions. What happened? Click on those and find out, oh, it was deprecated. What does that mean, deprecated? It means express disapproval. Why does Oracle disapprove? They haven't taken it away yet, but why is it disapproved? Because they're going to take it away. Pluggable databases were coming soon. Non-CDB architecture became deprecated. Now it's going to be desupported in 20C. I can also go to getting started and go to an interactive architecture diagram and learn more about the database. Learn more about the shared pool just by clicking on it. But great documentation to become better at my job. The best feature, as I said, 3 user-created pluggable databases that I can now do without paying for a multi-tenant option. I do need to buy the multi-tenant option if I'm deploying 4 or more user-created PDBs. Machine learning, Oracle, if I do use autonomous database, let's say in 18C, Oracle's automatically going to update it to 19C. And there's my Twitter where I tweeted this right when Larry announced it. But basically, it's going to use automatic indexing and automatic tuning to make sure the next version is as fast as the last version. So automatic indexing, first of all, it's only on Exadata. You can see the process very simply, but I'll go through it step by step. Capture the SQL history into the repository. Look at things like bind variables, execution statistics, and identify indexes that need to be put on. Then create those, but make them invisible. Remember, we learned that in 12C. Drop things that are obsoleted. Verify that it's going to be faster for everything, not just this. Decide, is it better for all of them? Make sure and monitor everything. And these are just some of the commands. If I want to implement this, I use the word implement when I use that automatic index package. The default is off, so it's disabling it. But report only is nice because it'll create invisible indexes and I can see how it's doing. I also could do it for specific schemas as well. They're B-tree indexes. I can create it for partition tables and non-partition tables, but can't for temporary tables. a few other pieces. And this is just an example of Richard Foote, who created it, used auto-indexing. You can see it created his first index. So instead of an Aura 600, I get an AI 600. Hey, I like that. Then Marie Colgan showed how 43 automatically created indexes over time that Oracle had built yielded great performance. And you can find this if you go to Maria Colgan's blog from Oracle. The other thing is if I do report only, whether I implement or it's report only, it's going to show me what are the index candidates. Did it create visible, invisible? In this case, it created visible indexes, so I obviously implemented it. It would have been invisible if I didn't implement it. Didn't drop any indexes, but now it's 3 times faster for 16 statements that are now improved. I can also use hints. Use hints. Don't use hints with automatic indexing. Another new feature in 19C, but only in Exadata, is I can now terminate SQL statements if the execution plan has been quarantined. And this is how you quarantined it. I don't go into great detail. But this shows the error that the user is going to receive. And then also how many people have executed this, tried to execute this quarantine statement, and when's the last time they tried. Another nice feature, if you don't use Active Data Guard, it is an incredible feature for high availability. But now with 19C, you can even do DML on the standby. So previously, you could do querying on the standby. Now I can actually do DML, and this shows you that, well, it just redirects it to the primary and then sends it to the standby, but it takes care of the detail of that, so I don't have to. There's also object stores where I could go to Oracle's, I could go to Azure's, I could go to Amazon's. But the big feature of Oracle is they have great security, different types of security. They've been building it for 4 decades. That's 40 years. And it just keeps getting better. And as I said, in Oracle 20C, non-CDB is D-supported. So when you go to 19, you want to get to pluggable databases. So keep that in mind. So are you using these new 19C features? Have you gotten a pluggable database? Are you using automatic indexing? Are you checking it? How about quarantine? Are using in-memory, all kinds of support for all kinds of big data types? Are you using real application testing? Well, they now have support for pluggable databases as well. Should I go to 19C or 20C? Well, 19C is the long-term version. Well, I'll show you. Let's go to this slide, though. And I tweeted this when it came out as well. But basically, notice 19C is the long-term supported. And I'm going to show you in a minute, a new update came out where it's even longer. And 22 was going to be the next long-term support, but now that they've changed this a little where they have innovation releases like 20C, 21C, these are innovation releases, 18C innovation release. Here's the latest. Notice 19C is extended all the way into 2027 with paid extended support and error correction you get. You can see, the in-between versions like 19C, I'm now going to see some of the new features, maybe play with them, but I want to jump to the right version. So the next long-term supported release, maybe it's 22, maybe it's 23, we'll see as it has changed. But Oracle now, and they made it very clear, and you might look at this MOS node 742.060.1, and they tell you these innovation releases like 18C, only 2 years of premier support, no extended support. But the long-term release like 19, 5 years of premium support, 3 years of extended support. So that's where you want to be at 19C. And then just a little bit of a look ahead, and this will be kind of quick. And this is 20C, and you could look at the preview version, and this is what you see when you go to that preview version. But the big things that Oracle's going into is automatic machine learning, automatic select a model, automatic select features, automatically tune things. Oracle also has more security. Oracle Data Safe that tells me, is the system secure? How about users? Are the users secure? Is the data secure? Is it masked correctly? And this is just the Data Safe console. If I'm using Oracle Cloud, I go to Data Safe and I can add it in. And I'm just going to zoom in here and look at my security user or data assessment. And you can just see, how very intuitive this is. Also, in-memory has expanded greatly. In-memory for spatial text. Now in-memory vector joins for joining things is what gaming uses. Single instruction, multiple data sets. In-memory hybrid scans where it will look at the buffer cache and the in-memory column store at the same time for the same query if it's helpful. And then automatically populates or affixed data in memory. Security we talked about, but in 20C, some of these things are just going to become more and more important, things like data safe. Active Data Card now has a standby result cache with it. No more case-insensitive password files, be careful, but notice the copy command there in the lower right. I can now click on that, and from the dock, it'll copy that command for me so I don't have to retype it. Boy, isn't that nice? It's also blockchain tables. So maybe I'm an escrow company and I want to run a tamper-resistant ledger of accounting where only insert operations are allowed. So I can now create blockchain tables inside of Oracle. There's also persistent memory that Oracle now uses. This is like Flash, but now when I turn off the power, it doesn't go away. Check your hardware vendors for that more, like Intel. Some key features for Application Express or Apex. You have dark mode, for when it's dark outside, they want the screen maybe a little darker. Upload support for documents. I find this to be fantastic, a fantastic way to get data into Autonomous Database. A couple of new machine learning algorithms that are nice. If I click on the docs, I can look at what's new. And you can see just some of the new featured guide here. Hybrid in-memory scans, as I talked about earlier, where I can look at the buffer cache and in-memory column store at the same time. This just talks more about it. In-memory talks a little bit more about where it can populate or evict things, but it can also compress data and compress some of the cooler data, leaving the hotter data less compressed or uncompressed. But the base level feature now, 16 gig, no extra cost. And here's just a little bit more on it. And just to let you know, now available in 19.8. So in 19C, I could also get this free 16 gig in-memory base level. Isn't that nice? There's also a tablespace encryption default algorithm, and you can see for the different encryption algorithms there, 128, 192, 256. I think it's pretty much the standard. Algorithm encryption standard. You can also use certain management functions like use data pump to bring things into ADW-ATP, which is Autonomous Data Warehouse, Autonomous Transaction Processing. You can also include, exclude things, and some of the other ones that are there. But one of the best features is Oracle Database Auto Upgrade, which makes things just much easier to upgrade. Bijou looked at some of the things that many of the cool features are on Exadata or Oracle Cloud. And you could see a list here. This was a nice tweet that I retweeted from Bijou. But access the Oracle Database Guide now. Look at what's new. I look at database in memory. There's a little bit of information about database in memory external table enhancements. So they've enhanced it to make it faster. Database in memory, how about the base level? It's this new 16 gig notice without triggering any licensing. How about if I wanted to look at database in memory licensing? Now I could see what's available on different versions. And here's just database in memory, zooming into that a little bit more on different versions, on different products rather. Automatic indexing and 20C and some improvements they've made on 20C. This just goes into that a little more. You can download this if you're interested. And there's some of the licensing associated with that on different things such as Standard Edition, Enterprise, etc. But you can access the Oracle Docs and look at machine learning as well and look at these new algorithms that are out there. And here's just the XBoost algorithm, which recently won a competition. And you can see it's on many different types of offerings on the database. And this just talks more about it, but just an FYI slide. Looks for subtle anomalies. Oracle has also added things like autonomous JSON, and they're looking to add autonomous graph analytics. Why use JSON? Well, you can see this top command is XML. The lower command is JSON. A lot easier to do the same thing, but for a stock price in this case. Autonomous JSON, I started it. Went into autonomous, built JSON, shared infrastructure, create autonomous database, and it created me a 19C autonomous JSON database. Provisioning, available, took 7 minutes the first time, 5 minutes the second time. You can see some of the other things that Oracle has put in recently. One-click upgrade, as I talked about, is awesome. Autonomous cloud at customer, so you don't have to have it in Oracle's cloud. You can have it on-site, but in the cloud. Autonomous data guard we talked about, and autonomous JSON database, and you can see what JSON stands for. And SODA is how I can access these documents. That's an Oracle product. Oracle Cloud, definitely becoming the best. Because of the database that underlies it and all the security that's out there and the converged database to where it can go to all kinds of different data types. But they're also improving their infrastructure. So are you using, or at least looking at, some of these new features that are in 20C, this innovation version? Do I need to worry about AI? Well, somebody once showed that this was on a website and said the tech oligarchs are buying all the AI talent. And Oracle themselves has bought a company called Data Science and some others in the data science world. But to me, that's a good thing because AI is coming and it's not going to stop. I think we need some standards and ethics for it, but it's not going to stop coming at us. A big piece of AI is machine learning. There's all kinds of different kinds. And I would say go to an AI class. I have one on the 27th this month with the Michigan Oracle User Summit. But the biggest thing is Oracle has been building analytics for 20 years. And they've been building algorithms for decades. And they have all the main functions like classification or clustering or anomaly detection. They have algorithms for those different types of functions. Those are just some of them. But Oracle sees Autonomous Database, if you're a DBA, making life better for you. You know why? Because it's easy to manage the database, take some of the load off you. But I can also go into Autonomous Database. This is an Autonomous Transaction Processing database. And I go to Development, and I can go to the Machine Learning Notebooks here, click on it, look at Oracle's examples, or create my own, or run SQL scripts. And you can see some of the different algorithms that they built notebooks for. And a notebook just is a set of code to do something in machine learning in this case. So an example, just to make it a little easier, is if I'm looking for an anomaly, they built some math problems or some math solutions to find and put a circle around all my data until that circle becomes smaller and smaller. The anomalies are what are outside the database. Or my good and bad customers may be separated by a line, but the farthest line from each of them. And somebody's worked out the math over the last, 40, 50 years. Now these are built with algorithms. And this is just some additional information. I'm not going to go through it, but I'll tell you just one piece. Supervised learning means I'm giving it some data to look at. Unsupervised learning means go out there and just cluster the data. I'm not giving you any data to start with. Anomaly detection, if I go into, this is a notebook where I'm just doing a simple select clause. Pretty easy, right? SQL so far. Then I click on a graph, say put it on a bar graph. You can see it's grouped it into different areas, and I do that with settings. And then I go through and I say, create a table for settings and put an algorithm in there called support vector machines, which just happens to do many things, but one of the things it does is anomaly detection. And then I'm going to create a model called Customer 360 model, which does classification function on the Customer 360 table based on the customer ID, and use those settings, Customer 360 set, which is going to use that support vector machine. You know, what is it so for? Just SQL and PL SQL. And then I'm going to run a query where I'm going to now do a prediction based on that model to see if something's anomalous. It's going to help me to find anomalous customers versus years of residence, but grouped by marital status. And then I can display the top 15 anomalous. Still not very hard, still just SQL. Then I'm going to say, give me why the model is anomalous. Find the attributes that make it anomalous. And by calling that model with support vector machines and writing some SQL, I can now look at the attributes that made it anomalous. And you can see where it's calling the model I built right here. So it's not beyond you if you're a SQL developer or SQL PL SQL developer or even DBA to do some of this machine learning. Is it going to replace my job? Well, Rod Serling put it this way: the competition between man's mind and the product of man's mind, for this, they're standing room only in the twilight zone. Because we're always going to replace the work we have with something that we come up with. But cyber attacks are growing. And Autonomous puts the patch on before you even know it needed a patch. How about the DBA? Well, you better make sure you've chosen the right cloud vendor. I've tweeted a lot of things where it compares the different clouds. Oracle, a very inexpensive cloud comparatively, especially with space. But the DBA's got to do this. ATP, provision a database, meaning creating one, takes all of 2.5 minutes. Oracle's Autonomous Database grew 70% in Q4. Stopping, scaling an autonomous database, also not difficult. One click, add more CPUs, add more storage. Stop the database, one click, I click stop. Stopping, and then it stopped. It doesn't take long. There's also 20C preview mode. I'm not going to go through it, but this shows some slides on how you would build that with, bare metal. And there's the 20C preview, 20.2 to be exact. Then also I have an autonomous database, and it says, hey, your 18C database, we're going to upgrade it to 20C or to 19C for you. You don't have to worry about it. Wasn't that nice? How about autonomous databases on Exadata? So I get multi-tenant to split things up. So I get in-memory. So I get rack for high availability. So I get active data guard for recovery and high availability. So I get partitioning for speed. And then all the other features that are out there. How's the DBA going to stay alive? Use your twin, your autonomous database, to do some of the work for you, so that you could focus on things like AI, machine learning, robotics, and some of the key things. But you got to set it up right. What's important now? Get to 19C and start to get this going. There's also a free version of Oracle if you want to build something on the side, and this talks about it. But the future world is getting stranger. If you've never seen the series, The Twilight Zone, I consider this the best series that was ever made. It was built in the 1950s and 1960s. But he's talking about today. As we went from 8-bit, 4-bit to 8-bit to 16 to 32 to 64, you could see the addressable memory is skyrocketing. You could also see, I put it in speed. If it was speed and Windows was 1 mile an hour, the internet was really 32-bit and it was like 65,000 miles an hour. And then 64 was like 300 trillion miles an hour. You can see we're getting things like robotics, machine learning, quantum computers. But Gartner looks at it this way, things are being hyped as they're being developed, a lot of press, then some negative press, and finally 5% adoption, and then at the end, maybe 30%. So let's see, in 2013, everything was about tech. Autonomous vehicles were coming, but big data was here. Cloud computing, we're getting close to where maybe we're going to get some people using it. Just seven years ago. Then 2015 became all about robotics, autonomous vehicle, connected homes, smart robots, even human augmentation starting to come in the future. 2018 is about a new reality, digital twin. Maybe it's your autonomous DBA. Quantum computer no longer is far away. Connected home now in 2020, it's here. Augmented reality, it's here. So Oracle's built a lot of innovations, whether it be with machine learning, with IoT, machine learning apps, chatbots. Am I leveraging the database with AI and virtual reality, with mixed reality, with augmented reality? It's available now. Am I leveraging it with GPS and with robotics? It's available now. We're moving from using to wearing to implanting digital. Eventually it'll be the hive mind. The world is changing fast. Star Trek used to look so advanced to me. This is this TV series, if you've never seen it. It used to look so advanced, but now not so advanced. Now we're starting to see the beginning of a brain implant, the beginning of where people are implanting technology and using it for their job. So what do we look at? What's important now? Understand 12C, understand 18C, so that you can go to 19C and don't miss those features. Know what's coming in 20C, then start to use Autonomous Database for machine learning and integrate some of these future technologies for your system. Be a future tech leader. Integrate technology, whether it be a suit, a watch, maybe some virtual reality, or maybe some slimmed down augmented reality, or maybe just some coffee. We make a living by what we get, make a life by what we give. I did this presentation just to let you know, from the other side of the pond here in Chicago, you can really make a difference with this technology if you apply it correctly. Oracle's not going to get caught. Oracle's already in the lead from a security, from a database standpoint, from the applications. They've made many acquisitions in the 90s. They are the business intelligence and analytics leader right now. Their machine learning is great in the algorithms they have. People just aren't using them as much as they could. Make sure that you do. A little bit about some of our other partners. One more picture of the databases. Some that get a lot of noise and you hear a lot about, maybe aren't as big as you think they are. Some new books. Here's some Oracle Aces. You want to find out some new things, learn from the aces out there. 12C book is available, was the #1 release when it came out. From information, a couple of references there. Those are pictures with Twilight Zone. Other versions of the book. You guys are in the APAC region. There are different translations out there. Follow us at Viscosity. There's a few places. And then the new picture of Oracle Aces, that's the latest one. You can see how much it grew from the last picture that I had. A little more about me. And we'll leave it at that. Send an email for the slides and follow me on Twitter. And you'll see when something comes out or I hear Larry say something, I always tweet that. Thank you all and have a great day. And we'll get questions answered. We're running where we have to cut it off at this point, but you can always contact me there. Thanks and have a great day.